Darkness falls across the land. The midnight hour is close at hand. Creatures crawl in search of blood to terrorize your neighborhood. Now pray for the soul of this explorer. It's time for 31 days of horror. Lady, I'm your knight in shining armor, and I love you. You have made me what I am, and I am yours. Oh, hello, Terence McGuana here. You must forgive me, I'm a hopeless necromantic. And today on the 31 Days of Horror, we're going to talk about the Texas Chainsaw Massacre from 1974. Now, I absolutely adore this film. This film to me is an absolute masterpiece. It's not in my top 10 horror films of all time, it's in my top 10 films of all time. And honestly, I could sit here all night talking about this movie. Are you okay with that? Yeah, definitely. Let's get it on. The basic plot to this film involves a group of teenagers who are travelling across the great state of Texas when they encounter a cannibalistic family, including the iconic Leatherface. I first became aware of this film in the late 1980s. I think it was 1989, because I remember Police Academy 6 coming out at the time. My strange brain again, it just remembers all these dopey things. And in this shop window I could see these model kits of Freddy Krueger, Jason Voorhees and Michael Myers, who I was all too familiar with. But there was this other one, Leatherface. Who's Leatherface? Could never place him. And for good reason. That movie, The Texas Chainsaw Massacre, was banned in my home country until 1999. In the early 90s, I became aware of this film's notoriety. I knew this kid at school who said to me that he'd seen The Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And I was like, wow, you've seen The Texas Chainsaw Massacre? I want to know every detail about that film. And he just made stuff up. He'd never seen this film. He just talked about how there was this man on a motorcycle driving around, just chopping people left, right and centre. And he was just unstoppable. And I was just like, oh, I have to see that. I have to see that. That just sounds incredible. And I totally bought it. And when I eventually got my hands on a pirate copy of The Texas Chainsaw Massacre, I could not wait to see this movie. It was not like that at all. I was sorely disappointed. I just thought, this movie is banned? This isn't that violent. This isn't that scary. I'm not scared about this. I'm not scared of this at all. After a few watches, I gave it a couple more watches, especially the fact that it was a pirate copy and it felt so illicit. The print was really scratchy and it had been copied a few times. That kind of added to the mystique of this film, and I watched it a few times more, and then I understood exactly what this film was aiming for. And what I love about The Texas Chainsaw Massacre, in comparison to other horror films, it is totally atmospheric. Every moment in it has an element of dread. From the opening scene where you've got the corpse that's strapped on to the headstone, and it's playing this radio news broadcast about people going missing, or grave robbers, that's right, it's about grave robbers going on in the news. And the music, this weird industrial music that plays over the soundtrack, it just draws you into this really dreadful, macabre environment. And I can't think of many films that have managed to achieve that without throwing blood and guts right down your throat. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre is a total mood piece. That's what I love about it. The only other film that I would say that just has this consistent element of terror all the way through it is Suspiria by Dario Argento. I love that film because it never has, when certain horror films, let's take Scream for example, where you've got this scary moment, but then you've got the next day, everybody's at the high school, no one's gonna get killed here, there's no element of dread going on. It's back to being a sort of teen comedy for a brief moment, and then we're back to the scary moments. Where the Texas Chainsaw Massacre and Suspiria, they have a constant theme of terror going throughout the movie, and I just absolutely adore that. That must be so difficult to sustain. We all know that this movie was made on a shoestring budget, and it was really difficult to make. You know, I've watched so many documentaries and read books about it, and it's an amazing achievement on what they had. What I love the most about this film is not Leatherface chopping up people with chainsaws. It is really these stark images that have haunted me for years. I think that the main theme of this film is the meat industry. And I've heard from other people, Guillermo del Toro being one, that he became a vegetarian after watching this film, and I can totally see why. There is a lot of images of animals and bones and feathers and all these sort of things that make you think of the food industry. When I first saw the film, I think the most shocking moment for me was when one of the characters discovers the crazy house, and they fall into this room where there's feathers everywhere, there's bones and everything everywhere. And the one image that really just shocked me, absolutely shocked me, was the tortoise shell. Was this tortoise shell that was all broken open? It was all broken open. That just shocked me. I couldn't believe how shocked I was with something so simple. You know, there are some really gruesome moments in this. For instance, the famous meat hook moment, right? But you don't see anything. You don't see the meat hook penetrate the flesh. You never see anything like that. It's so well crafted. The editing in that scene, the shot choices, you could tell that they've really planned this. This was not something that these people were not amateur filmmakers. And I do understand that Tobe Hooper he'd already been a filmmaker for a good few years. I have seen his very first film, Eggshells, which was okay. I mean, it was a bit of a hippy-dippy kind of trippy film that I enjoyed, but I wouldn't really recommend it to people. It's more of a sort of time capsule than anything. But the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, what a groundbreaking film! It looks tremendous. You know, there are so many iconic shots in this film that just honestly, they just come to mind every time I think about it. I would say that if I had to criticise this film, I would say that the main characters are the sort of blueprint for the stock slasher movie characters that you're going to see in the Friday the 13th films. You're going to boo me out the room here, right? But I don't like the Friday the 13th movies. I find them quite lazy. But the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and I think they were the blueprint where you had these sort of one-dimensional teenage characters. Marilyn Burns as Sally Hardesty, our main character in the film. She's not a well-drawn-out character. Probably the most well-drawn-out character is her brother Franklin, who is one of the most annoying characters in horror history. Even though he's bound to a wheelchair and the other characters neglect him in one particular scene. Can't wait for this character to die. And I don't like that in horror films. That's what I really love about Dawn of the Dead. What a great ensemble cast those 4 actors are. Care for each one of them. You don't want any of them to die. I think it's kind of dehumanizing in horror films when we are encouraged to enjoy the suffering of characters regardless of their character. You know, oh, with this guy, he's a bigot. Yeah, let's watch him getting slaughtered. Let's kill a bigot. But you got to understand, the thing about bigots is it's not a mental illness. You're not mentally ill if you're a bigot. You could unlearn being a bigot. You could change. You could change from being a bigot. And I think that it's kind of dehumanizing is what I would say. I think it's lazy to just, let's watch teenagers get slaughtered because they smoked dope and had sex. Oh, that's just boring. Boring to me. I can't really speak highly of the performances. I do think that Marilyn Burns puts in a tremendous performance. I mean, she probably has the most, she's probably the scream queen who's screamed the most. I mean, I don't know, I can't think of anyone in a film that's screamed more than this woman. It is a superb film, and if you've never seen the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, come on, you really have to. It is just the best. You know, I'm not got much of a taste for a lot of modern horror films because they are so contrived. I think that, you know, when you look back at some of the originals, A Nightmare on Elm Street, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Suspiria, they just had something new to offer. I find that nowadays it's almost like they're playing the greatest hits. You know, it's like, oh, we'll take a wee bit of that, we'll take a wee bit of that, we'll take a wee bit of that, and we'll just put it in a wee stew, and we get this kind of almost like, you know, now that's what I call horror. That's what it feels like. It doesn't actually feel fresh. It feels kind of stale, and that's why I'm always very careful about taking the plunge with a lot of modern horror films, because I find them quite tiresome. But I guess that's me. I'm an old fud, right? And I don't know what I'm talking about, right? That's the thing about opinions, right? The thing about opinions is I might seem overly opinionated, right? And I'm kind of forcing it right down your neck. But be like that yourself. You know, just go for it. Just, you know, there's nothing wrong with being opinionated. There's nothing wrong with you. Just because what I'm saying sounds really passionate and direct doesn't mean I'm right. It doesn't mean that I even have a Scooby what I'm talking about. I'm just a guy that works in a call centre, right? I'm not some film scholar, right? I can't sit here and name directors and producers that go way back to the silent era. I'm just an opinionated nutbag, right? So don't take what I say as gold. You know, argue with me, persuade me that I'm wrong, and I'm easy to persuade. You know, and I'm willing to back down when I know that I'm wrong. And that's the thing a lot of people don't get about me. They think, oh, you're too aggressive. I'm not. You know, I don't mean to be aggressive. In no way do I feel that I'm threatening in any way. Do I look threatening? I'm sorry if I do. I'll get a nose job or something, or, you know, I'll get my eyes maybe moved sort of further apart. But really, I just like to argue about films, and I like to argue politely. You know, I'm not going to say, you're an effing that, you're an effing C, how can you not see that? I'm not like that. I'll just say, look, here's my point. I like to debate, I like to argue about the movie. So if you're like me, right, and you like a wee chatter about movies, you want to put, you know, a wee back and forth, there's the comments, go for it. I'll be there, and I'll be waiting for you so I can get my chainsaw ready. If you like this video, hit the like button. If you don't like the video, hit the unlike button. If you want to subscribe to the channel, hit the subscription button. If you want to unsubscribe to the channel, hit the subscription button as well. And leave us a wee comment. Let's chat about the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I absolutely adore this movie, and I'm willing to fight for it. You know, chainsaws at dawn. And also, I'm going to have another horror movie tomorrow. It's going to be a hard one to beat this one. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre is one of the absolute best. It's an absolute masterpiece. And thanks for watching. See you tomorrow.